Welcome to Backyard Oasis, a podcast designed by and for older adults living in the beautiful Pioneer Valley of Western Massachusetts and produced in the tech studios at Greenfield Community College in Greenfield, Massachusetts. Backyard Oasis reaches out to older adults who seek knowledge to help them live more thoughtfully, healthily, and happily, who hope to inspire others with their ideas, and who serve their communities in the interest of the greater good. We hope you join us frequently in our pleasant Backyard Oasis for wide-ranging conversations with a diversity of people who are growing older and want to talk about it.
Hi, I'm Denise Schwartz, your host. You know, it's never happened to me, and I hope I'm not tempting fate when I say that, but even though I walk and hike in the woods and swim in rivers and snowshoe and cross-country ski and just spend lots of time being outdoors, I've not had an emergency in the wild. And in the situations in which I did have something medically unexpected happen, I was able to find emergency medical care in the typical way, call 911 or have someone drive me to the ER. But what if I was in the woods one day and the unexpected happened? Would I be prepared to take action in a skilled and calm way? What about you? Would you know what to do if you encountered a person who was drowning, having a stroke, if someone was choking or having a life-threatening allergic reaction? Do you know how to be calm and confident in your ability to respond to an emergency? Well, Nicole Roma Thurrell is my guest today. She's the CEO and Director of Education at the Institute for Wild Med, Wilderness Medicine. And she is going to talk to us about how we can all learn critical, life-saving skills. Why? So that we can be prepared to care for ourselves and our fellow humans when unexpected emergencies occur in the wild or in not-so-wild environments. But first, a little more about Nicole. She's an educator, a recipient of the Massachusetts Award for Excellence in Science Education. She earned degrees in psychology and recreation therapy. She's a wilderness EMT, an adventure racer, a raft guide, a high ropes facilitator, it keeps going on, a clinician for children with autism, a Waldorf high school teacher, and a mom. Hi, Nicole.
Hi, Denise. Thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome. So, we're going to talk about critical life-saving skills everyone can learn and how they can learn them. And also, you're going to be telling us about the items we can carry with us on a daily basis so that we can have, and I think this is really important, peace of mind should we encounter an unexpected emergency situation. Because let me just say, even though I've had CPR training and all of that, I'm not really sure I would be calm enough to administer it if I had to. So I hope you're going to talk to me about that too.
We can.
So first, let's start with finding out a little bit more about the Institute for Wild Med.
Yes. So we're based here in Montague, Massachusetts, and we teach CPR and first aid, and we specialize in wilderness first aid, as our name might suggest.
Yeah.
We are going to be piloting a mental health first aid course this summer that we're really excited about. And we teach courses all in person. We also teach them in a hybrid fashion, and we also teach them all online. So we are able to reach people all over the world with our courses.
28 countries,
Indeed,
I understand.
Indeed.
That sounds really great.
In 2023, we taught people in 28 countries.
Well, this episode is going to be titled Stop the Bleed. I understand that's a national campaign, and you can tell us a little bit about that. But what I wanted to find out is, since you teach a course with that title, what would we learn in that course to stop the bleed, and why is that so important?
First, I like to say that people will learn how critical it is to indeed stop bleeding. That might seem like common sense.
Right, it
but
does.
What a lot of people don't realize that a major bleed can be a 4 to 6 minute to live
What do you mean?
issue. If someone has a major arterial bleed, they may have only 4 minutes to live.
Wow, that puts a lot of pressure on somebody who might come across that person.
Indeed, indeed. And it also hopefully generates the adrenaline and the
It would.
commitment to controlling that bleeding with whatever measures and whatever materials one would have on hand.
Okay, so
Yes.
if I'm going to take this course so that I'm prepared to find somebody, I'm in the woods a lot. So
Okay.
let's say I come across somebody who's slipped and fallen
Sure.
and is bleeding really a lot.
Okay.
What would I learn in the course that you teach, Stop the Bleed, that would help me in that situation? What would I
Yes,
do?
Yes. So you would learn about well-aimed direct pressure. You would learn about building a pressure dressing. You would learn about the use of, and I'm going to pull this out, although our listeners can't see it, you can and I can describe it. You would learn about hemostatic agents. Hemostatic agents are granules that can be added to an open wound to coagulate blood. Many people have never heard
No, I've
of
never
a
heard.
hemostatic agent, and it's really light and it's really inexpensive and really easy to carry.
What is it?
It is so. My favorite brand is a brand called Celox, and the beauty of it is that it's a marine polymer.
Okay.
So the material is called chitosan, and it's reminiscent of fish food. So if you've ever had a fish, you know the very dry, flaky granules that you feed them. This hemostatic agent looks a lot like that.
So it absorbs liquid.
Exactly. It
Oh.
absorbs liquid and it coagulates it and it becomes very cement-like. And the reason this brand is my favorite is because it works even if your patient is taking blood-thinning medications.
Oh, okay. And so many
which
people are.
So many people
Right.
are. Many people know that they are, certainly if they're taking aspirin or Coumadin.
Right.
But many people don't know that they take blood thinners when they have ginger in their smoothie every morning. Or they take cod liver oil for inflammation. Or turmeric. Maybe they have a turmeric latte or they take turmeric again for inflammation, and that will thin the blood. And so again, many people know they take blood thinners and perhaps they could even carry this hemostatic agent preemptively, but many people don't know. So that when you as a caregiver begin these methods, which are clinically proven to work, and you're finding that they're not working, you may find it's because their blood is thin. And using a hemostatic agent is very helpful.
All right, so you put that back in the kit. We're going to talk about that a little later. Let's go back to the situation where we're
Yes.
in the woods. I found this person. Let's say he or she is bleeding from a gaping wound in
Sure.
his or her arm.
Sure.
Okay, so you said something about pressure. What do we do?
Okay, so well-aimed direct pressure with anything you can find that's absorbent.
Like
so
what?
It could be your T-shirt. At this point in the response, I am not concerned about infection. Please don't hear me say I'm not concerned about infection in general. I'm only setting it aside in this critical time period in which we must control this bleeding.
And you mean infection from, say, you said a T-shirt. And so I've been hiking and
You're
it's sweaty and disgusting.
dirty.
Right.
Yes, grab it, whatever you have that's absorbent, applying well-aimed direct pressure. And then we also talked, before we began recording, Denise and I talked about the new technique that's often used of packing a wound, where you may take that same T-shirt or whatever it is that you have, and you will actually pack it into the gaping wound.
How do you do that without hurting the person?
Yes, so that's, I don't mean to seem insensitive or callous, but that's second priority. And so you may hurt the person in order to care for them.
How do you know you're not
That
going
is
to,
the reality of it. And we haven't even talked tourniquets yet, which certainly will hurt the person. But your top priority is bleeding control. If we think about what their problems are and where they fall in a hierarchical list, pain is way lower than blood loss. So we can coach them and support them and talk about what you're doing and why and what they should expect and rub their back and, support them, but their pain takes a back seat. And again, I don't mean to seem insensitive. I'm just keeping us focused on the top priority, which is bleeding control.
bleeding control. And after that, should we talk about tourniquets now?
Sure. Okay, so just to review, because we've danced around,
Yeah.
we have talked about well-aimed direct pressure. We have
Wait,
talked...
but we didn't say what that really was.
So that's just simply gathering something absorbent and pushing directly where the blood is coming out of their body with your fingertips.
Your fingertips, not your palm.
Indeed. I believe that the fingertips will be just more
pressure.
powerful, more pressure, better realized by the cut. A palm is more diffuse pressure. So fingertips, absorbent material pushing right into the open wound.
Do we have to worry about that person's blood getting on us?
Great question. Indeed. So if you have gloves, that would be ideal, or another barrier device such as, gloves and please note,
they're in that pack, aren't they?
Yes. And I also want to mention that gloves should be nitrile. Please remove latex gloves from your medicine cabinets, from your first aid kits. Latex allergies are increasing, and let's not add anaphylactic shock onto our already life-threatening emergency, okay?
Okay, and that was a really good cue because we are going to talk about shock later related to allergies.
Okay, so we talked about pressure, we talked about the hemostatic agent, and we can talk about tourniquets if you wish.
Quickly talk about tourniquets because I want to talk about choking.
Okay, so I'll make this a 2-minute talk, and I'm glad that you opened the door for this because there are a lot of myths and misconceptions about tourniquets. I've been teaching for 24 years, and probably 18, if not pushing 20 of them, tourniquets were out of the curriculum. It was believed that a tourniquet was a guaranteed loss of limb.
Really?
Indeed. And
why? Because it would cut off the blood supply and then that would... Oh.
Exactly. And even then, I didn't really understand removing it from the curriculum because I did believe that saving the person's life was a higher priority than saving their limb. But that's an aside. What we know now about tourniquets is, and I don't like why we have this information, but I like that we have it. The reason we have it is because the U.S. military is doing many tourniquets because of explosive devices.
Oh, dear.
So I do not like why we have this information, but I'm very grateful that they have done a beautiful job writing down the time of application of the tourniquet and tracking the clinical outcomes. And they have been able to say that there are no losses of limbs for tourniquets worn any less than 6 hours. So just to summarize, if a tourniquet is worn for less than 6 hours, in all likelihood, you're not going to lose a limb. And most listeners will find themselves easily within 6 hours of definitive care. So what used to be an absolute last resort, try everything else first, is now just another tool in your kit.
I have to say that I probably would have thought that tourniquets were like the first thing to do because that's what I learned.
Okay, wonderful. And so now it's a tool for you. It's an option for you that you should feel is available. For many years, it was not in the curriculum. People saw it as a last resort. And then as a result of seeing it as a last resort, people bled out. Indeed.
Quickly, can you say how we would apply a tourniquet? Tell me that.
I can. So, again, I know you can't see this, but doing it will help me to articulate it better.
Okay,
so
she's taking something out of her pack, the pack that she's going to tell us about later that we should carry with us at all times.
So I'm simply holding a piece of fabric that's much like a folded bandana, folded on the corner. So it's nice and long, and the width is about 4 inches wide. And you'll simply take that around the extremity, and you'll tie a knot in it. One single overhand knot. Indeed, I'm going to put it right on my leg here.
Okay.
So a single overhand knot.
Okay.
Easy peasy. That's the knot you use when you're starting to tie your shoes. And then I have a pen from Greenfield Community College in my hand that I will place on the knot.
Oh, you're putting it right on top of the knot. Okay.
And then I'm tying another simple overhand knot to hold the pen in place.
I see that, yep.
And then, Denise, what do you think I'm going to do with this pen?
I bet you're going to turn it.
I'm going to turn it,
Tourniquet.
exactly. I'm going to turn it until, not until my patient's in great pain. I will probably turn past that point. I'm going to turn until the bleeding stops.
Wow.
That is how I know that I may stop my turning, when the bleeding has stopped.
Hey, what would you say to the person that you're doing this to if they're going, that really hurts?
Yeah.
No, what are the best words to use?
Yes, I hear you. I know you're really uncomfortable. I get it. I have tried everything else.
Okay.
Nothing else is working. I can see, you're really bleeding a lot, and my top priority is to stop that. So I know you can handle it. You've got this. I'm just going to turn as far as I must, and then we're out of here. We're off to the hospital where they will remove it because they have other techniques that they can use to control your bleeding.
Got it.
So,
oh, and you know what? You reminded me of something. I know when I read about this, it said the very first thing you do, if you can, is call 911.
Indeed.
We forgot to say that.
Indeed. If you have cell reception, if you have a phone, if you have a human that you can send to run for help,
Go get help.
Please do.
Do that first.
Indeed. Because there could be a delayed response time. You may think an ambulance is coming in 2 minutes, and you may find where you live, it is more like 12 minutes or 25 minutes.
Okay.
And we've already said that a major bleed can be a 4 to 6 minute to live issue. So getting support on the way immediately is high priority.
So number one, stop that bleed. Should we move on to a different scenario?
Sure.
Okay. I want to talk about two things, choking, and then I want to talk about, well, I don't even want to say it yet.
Okay.
Okay, but that's going to be, well, I guess I'll say it. Allergies.
Yeah.
Okay, because there's something really interesting about that.
Indeed.
So tell me about choking, because this is one of the things, like, we've all kind of seen the Heimlich maneuver. We know that's what we're supposed to do. I don't know. I don't know if I'd have presence of mind to do it.
Okay. So I want to say the same thing that I said about bleeding. Choking is a 4 to 6 minute problem.
Wow.
If you are not taking in oxygen, you will not stay alive. You will begin to die in 4 to 6 minutes if you're not taking in more oxygen.
Okay.
So again, I don't mean to seem crude, but I think putting these facts out there is activating. So, I'm hearing you say that you're not quite sure if you could pull it off. I'd love to tell you a 45-second story
Go
that
ahead.
my hope will empower you. Someone came to one of my classes because this situation happened to them. Imagine driving at night on a rural road. It happened to be Ashfield. Perhaps we have some listeners in
yeah.
Ashfield. Rural road in the dark in Ashfield. That means you don't have cell reception. This person was sucking on one of those circular red and white swirly peppermint candies.
Oh, yeah.
And choked on it. No training. And her primal instincts took over.
So she was alone.
She all alone. I didn't add that to the story.
Okay.
All alone. And so she pulled her car over, safety first. She rolled her window down, and she threw her abdomen over the door where the window goes into the door.
Wow.
And candy flew out.
What?
Mm-hmm. And again, that's why she came to the class, because this happened. She's like, I need training. And I'm like, hey,
You got it,
you know
girl.
what? Actually, your primal instinct really served you well. Like it does for many people. Many
Okay.
people come to my classes because they have had the trauma of having to manage a medical emergency. And the truth is, for many of them, they handled it beautifully with a combination of their adrenaline and their primal instincts. They often say after the dust settles is when
Yes.
they become emotional, they become shaky, they dissociate, they really feel the gravity of the situation.
Right.
But often in it, they're clear as day. They have a lot of clarity that they bring to the situation, action, and they often manage it well.
Good to know.
Yes. So isn't that an amazing story?
I don't know. Let's hope we're in a car if that ever happens, and I'll remember that and I'll try to do it. I know we don't really have time for you to tell us how to do the Heimlich maneuver, and that's okay, because I think we can find that out.
Sure.
But I think the anecdote will really stick in people's minds.
I know, exactly.
Now, you've mentioned that there is a, let me see if I can find how you said it. It was pretty interesting. You said that there's a prevalence of anaphylaxis in schools in kids who have no histories of allergies.
Yes, the state of Massachusetts just issued a report for schools so they can understand just how prevalent it is and how to develop their own policies, procedures, and protocols. And in this report, it is stated that 22% of the children who arrive at the nurse's office in the throes of anaphylactic shock have no history of allergies at all.
What's going on?
I know. It's, I think, to some degree a mystery. I think if we asked 10 different allergists and immunologists, they would have different answers for us. There are some, this is just a hypothesis, and it's likely one of many, but one that I have seen through several reputable sources is that simply our guts are not as intact as they once were.
Why not? I know
There
you
are
don't know
there are a
why.
lot of different reasons. I know that glyphosate in our food does degrade our gut integrity. Even many over-the-counter drugs, such as Advil, compromises our gut integrity. And when our gut integrity is not intact, particles from our gut, our waste material, is able to travel out of our gut into our blood and then is seen as an invader and is attacked as such. And that can begin a cascade of responses that looks like inflammation and severe allergy. And so I want to be clear on this. 22% of these kids experiencing anaphylactic shock have never had allergies before. So what this really means for us as we move about the world is if we have family members, or if we have children, or if our children have friends over and we learn, oh, they have no allergies, I don't want you to have the illusion that they're never going to have an allergy with you.
Oh,
and that's really the take-home point is it's that anyone at any point could experience a really severe allergy, and I want you to be prepared for it.
And how do you be prepared? I think this is probably going to segue into that little kit that you have here too.
Yeah. So being prepared for an allergy means identifying the symptoms early on. So you're looking for hives, you're looking for difficulty breathing, swelling in the eyes, the lips, the tongue. A less common, or it's not less common actually, but less known symptom, gastrointestinal. Cramps, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. People often do not associate that with allergies.
No, they think I ate something that wasn't great.
Of course, but it is very much in the constellation of symptoms that we see with anaphylactic shock. And so what we may have on us is an over-the-counter medication you've probably heard of. What do you think it might be? An over-the-counter medication for allergies. Benadryl. Yes,
okay.
Very good early on. I'm not saying that is going to solve a severe anaphylactic reaction. It may temper an allergy. It may buy you time. But what they really need, I must just say, they really need an EpiPen if they're experiencing. And then back to getting 911.
I want to ask a question before we go into, because we are starting to wind down now.
Sure.
We want to talk about what's in the kit that we should carry with us all the time. But if I encountered someone and I looked at them and I saw that they had some of those symptoms, and I pulled out my Benadryl and I gave that to them and they had a bad reaction to that, is that not good for me to have done?
Yes.
I mean, I don't want to use the legal word,
Well, we're going to use the legal support, which we have in all 50 states. We have the Good Samaritan Law, which is designed to protect you when caring for someone else if your care caused damage. And in order to enjoy the protections of the Good Samaritan Law, you must act according to any training that you have had, and you must be what's known as prudent, meaning you would do what the average person would do in your shoes. So if the average person would look at someone with signs and symptoms of allergies and offer them Benadryl, I believe that is perfectly prudent and a wise action to take.
Okay, that's
and
good to
it's
know.
also, we're talking about an oral medication. You're not forcing that upon anyone. You're suggesting it, and then the person is ultimately making the choice for themselves. You're never going to give that to someone who's unconscious, and you're therefore going to be liable for something you did while they were unconscious. They're going to take a part in this.
Well, I just thought of one more thing. This could go on for a long time, and I apologize. But so I have that EpiPen.
Yes.
Am I allowed to stab them with it, or do they have to do it?
Now we're talking about a different level here.
Okay.
You are still protected by the Good Samaritan Law should you administer an EpiPen to someone in anaphylactic shock. And in some states, they want you to, quote, assist with the self-administration, which means your hand on their hand on the EpiPen.
Okay, I understand.
And, but, I think in any court of law, a judge, and judges are known to be very liberal with the application of this law. In any court of law, you can say, the evidence was swollen eyes, swollen lips, wheezing, hives, red skin, loss of consciousness. I found an EpiPen in their pocket because I found a bracelet on their hand saying anaphylaxis. You bet I administered that.
Very good.
And any judge is going to support you.
Okay, I have two things that I want to talk to you about.
Okay.
But we do have to talk about what's in that little kit you have. Now, this is something that you're telling us it would be good for us to have and carry with us every day should we encounter any kind of emergency.
Exactly. We do sell first aid kits. That's not what this is. This is just items that I believe people should carry on them. And my experience of carrying these items is peace of mind. When I'm at a concert or when I'm simply at the grocery store, I feel more peace of mind when I have these items. So we've already talked about the hemostatic agent. We already talked about the bandana-like fabric. That's called a triangular bandage. I keep both of those in my daily kit. I also do keep Benadryl. for allergies. The generic name, by the way, is diphenhydramine. So perhaps, what you can see, Denise, me holding up right now, it says diphen.
Diphenhydramine, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's in a lot of over-the-counter medications,
It is, for
okay.
sure. Yeah, it's in Tylenol,
Not just Benadryl,
PM.
but
that's right.
Also all those other sinus things.
Okay. That's right. I also carry aspirin because aspirin can be used if someone is experiencing chest pain, and it could stop a heart attack if the heart attack is caused by a blood clot causing their chest pain. So I keep aspirin, which must be chewed, by the way, and taken with water. It must be chewed and taken with water for the purpose of chest pain.
Okay.
Not to be used if there are any stroke-like symptoms.
And how would we know what those are?
So slurred speech, drooping face, dragging a leg.
Okay.
Yeah. So any stroke-like symptoms, no aspirin, because aspirin's a blood thinner and strokes can be caused by hemorrhage.
Okay.
Okay. I also just keep ibuprofen simply for
your
pain.
own headache.
Yes, exactly. Just simply for pain.
We all carry that.
Yes. I also carry electrolytes.
Ooh.
It's amazing how often people complain to me as a mom and just a person out in the community of headaches, telling me that they perhaps are dehydrated.
Sure.
And the next step from dehydration is heat exhaustion and could be, heat stroke. So we want to keep people really well hydrated.
Can you take those if you don't have water? Can you just
It's a great question.
take the pop
Yes, you
powder?
can. Yes,
Oh,
you
you
can.
can.
In fact, it's such a great question
Yeah,
because
who has water all the time?
not only that, but when we become dehydrated and when we have heat stroke and heat exhaustion, we experience nausea.
Yes.
And when we experience nausea, often, if you were to add this to water, begin drinking it,
Oh, we
often
know
it
what
comes
would
right
happen.
back out.
Okay.
So in the early stages of recovery from severe dehydration, eating it is actually better
Wow,
than drinking
I
it.
never knew.
Yes, yes. I also keep Band-Aids. This is probably the lowest impact item in there, but it's more for emotional support than anything. And then lastly, I keep a space blanket or an emergency blanket. This is a Mylar blanket
Oh, yeah,
that
I've
is
seen
used for anyone who lives in New England should carry one of these. Literally, you all, they're just over $1 and they're very light. And just if your car ever breaks down or you're unexpectedly out in the cold, this can keep you warm. I also keep it in here because with a major bleed, hypothermia is often comes along with the major bleed. And then I have a little power bar in there for calories.
I want to say that the kit is really small. It's probably 8 inches long and 3 inches wide. It's not really big. It's not like a go bag, which is really important to have.
You bet.
But I think that I could do this and carry it, and that makes a lot of sense to me. Thanks for showing us all of that.
It weighs 4 ounces.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine.
4 ounces.
We can do that.
A quarter of a pound. That's
we should
a
probably
pretty
take
high
it when
impact.
we hike in the woods.
Yes.
We should probably take
Yes, I would recommend it.
We're so excited. We're talking over each other. We are winding down now. I do want to ask you something. 2 things.
Yes.
I said that before, so it makes it like 3 or 4 things. Why is this so important to you, this topic?
Yeah. So aside from simply being able to save each other's lives, I mean, that goes without saying, that's certainly important to me to be able to save each other's lives and care for our fellow humans. That's high priority. But for me, I see just an epidemic of anxiety, restlessness, fear in our world. People are afraid to go out. There are social phobias higher than ever. I see, Denise, I mentioned this to you earlier. I saw at a school a sign saying, "Have a safe summer," which, I wish that for the kids too. But I think that they read that and that actually generates anxiety. And it's also born from anxiety. And so,
I never thought of that, but that is really true. I think you had mentioned, why doesn't it say have a summer full of fun?
Yes.
And be safe at the same time.
Yes, of course, it's implied. But I think it generates anxiety for people. And again, I think it's born from anxiety. And I think the more people feel, I believe self-reliance leads to peace of mind. So if people know how to respond to the unexpected and they have some tools, both physical as well as skill-based, for managing the unexpected, they will feel self-reliant, and then from there, they will feel peace of mind. And I think
that's
it's just so important
right now.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, I've learned so much from you today. And I went online, I learned some stuff about Stop the Bleed and things about the Wild Med Institute, the name of which I think is wonderful. But really, talking with you, I've learned so much, and I can see why you're an excellent educator.
Thank you.
I can see why people respond to what you teach. It's really good. And you smile, and that's really important. So what we'll do is we will put the information about the Wild Med Institute on this. We'll do it a little bit later after you and I say goodbye. Okay.
That's good.
Maybe you can come back and talk to us about other things we can do to help keep ourselves and others safe and happy.
Great. Thanks, Denise.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You can learn more about the Institute for Wild Med at instituteforwildmed.com.
This concludes today's podcast. We're always looking for new ideas, so feel free to reach out to Judy Raper, Associate Dean of Community Engagement at Greenfield Community College at 413-775-1819 if you have an idea you'd love to share. Special thanks to the creators of Backyard Oasis, Denise Schwartz, Chad Fuller, Dennis Lee, and Christine Copeland. Have a great day.